Okay, lots of comments to get through today, but I'll try my best. We've got Cat, another Cat, Barry Allen, The Flash, Kelly, Helen, Simon, Kim, Jimmy, Neymar. Ooh, Neymar's here. Dale, Jenny, Sierra, Uriah, C. Smith, Robin Smith, uh, Learning Piano, and Dale Peterson. Cool. Let me try my best to get through these comments then. So Cat James is saying, who would you sell in the summer? Yeah, good question. I'd be looking at selling Nunes because I don't think the whole kind of Nunes transfer has necessarily worked. And I think we can still get quite a good amount of money for him. I know that Saudi offered like about 70 million in January. I don't know if we'll necessarily get 70 million again. I think part of the 70 million was because it was January, and typically in January, kind of transfer fees are a lot higher. Clubs are a bit more desperate because there's less availability, that sort of thing. But even then, I think Nunes would be one of the players I'd be looking to move on. I think if we could get like 60, 70 million, that would be amazing. But if we could get anything above 55, I think you take it. Heck, anything above 50 you take. And I think anything above 45, you'd have to kind of seriously consider. I do think he'd have a lot of value because he's still quite young. His physical attributes are still really, really good, still really quick, still really aggressive, which I think is a positive. Of course, you can be too aggressive and then it becomes a negative, but still really aggressive, still very raw. And I think certain other coaches will see that and they'll think that they can do something with it. They'll be like, okay, look, it hasn't necessarily worked for him at Liverpool, but me as a coach, I think I can get something out of this player. So I think with that in mind, there probably will be quite a few suitors for him, and I think we could get a decent amount of money. So Nunes would be one I'd be looking to move on. Another one would be Diaz. Part of the reason for that is because I think he's only got 2 years left on his deal, and we don't want to kind of get into a situation again with Diaz where next year, where again we have yet another player with 1 year left who doesn't want to sign. Do they want to sign? And then we get to Christmas and he hasn't signed, and then we're all flustered because it's the new year kind of thing. I'd rather, if contracts were kind of coming to an end, we kind of dealt with it and we kind of sorted it ahead of time. So what that ultimately means is we don't let contracts run down into their final year. So what that therefore means is when it's 2 years left, then we take action. We just say to the person, look, if you want to sign, here's a contract you can sign. If you don't want to sign, we'll move you on. We'll kind of ship you to Barcelona or wherever kind of thing. So Diaz would be another one that I'd be kind of looking to sell. I think for Diaz, you could get, again, probably like a similar fee to Nunes, if I'm honest. I do think he's a more refined player than Nunes, but he is a bit older. Not significantly so, but he is a bit older, so I think that may kind of affect his transfer fee a little bit. So yeah, I think Diaz would be another one. And for Diaz, you'd be looking at about 60-ish million. So if we add that to the 70-ish million that we said for Nunes, that's 130 million already. So things are looking good. Who else? Who else would I be looking to sell? Kelleher, unfortunately, I'd be looking to sell. I really like Kelleher, and in fact, I'd go a step forward and say he's, in some ways, I kind of weirdly prefer Kelleher to Alisson. And I know it's kind of weird to say that, but I think Kelleher has made it kind of quite known that he wants to move on so that he can play first team football. So with that in mind, we're probably going to have to sell him. As I said, I'd rather keep him because he's come up through the Yanks. Yanks? He's not American. He's come up through the ranks. Counts as a homegrown player. He's on quite low wages. So even if we were to give him another contract, it still wouldn't be significantly higher wages. He's performed whenever he's come in. Very good at penalties. Very good from a distribution perspective. Doesn't seem to really have an ego. So all the signs say to me kind of keep Kelleher, but I think the difficulty is there. He wants to move on. Because even if we were to keep him around this year, you know that he's not going to play, is he? And also with kind of Mamadashvili coming in, you don't really need three. You don't really need three kind of top keepers. So I think, unfortunately, we'd have to move Kelleher on as well. Not that I want to, but we'd have to move Kelleher on as well, which would be another, I don't know, another kind of 30 odd million. So we're on about 160 now. Just going through the team, I'd say we also need to look at perhaps moving on one of the left backs, either Costas or Robertson. I think left back is a source of weakness in the team, and it is an area that I've seen that lots of teams kind of target. Lots of teams seem to be targeting that left-hand side now. Traditionally, and in years gone by, it used to be the right-hand side that teams used to target, because obviously Trent was there. Trent would be very far up the pitch. Trent would be doing his, Ronaldinho impression. So naturally there'd be a gap on the right, or Trent would be running back, and so teams would expose the right-hand side. But this year I've noticed that hasn't happened as much. It's more kind of teams exposing the left-hand side. And I think the reason for that is Robertson isn't quite the athlete that he once was. And secondly, Costas, even though he's a lot younger, hasn't always been the most defensive, shall we say. He hasn't always been like the most defensive of left backs. So I think kind of with that in mind, we do perhaps need to move on one of the left backs. Who would my choice be? I'd probably keep Robertson and move on Costas. The reason for that is Costas is younger, so I think we'd get a higher fee. Secondly, I believe he signed a new contract. I think it was last year. It was either last year or the year before, but it was fairly recently. So I think he has signed a new contract quite recently. So since he has a longer contract, we'll be able to that would increase the transfer fee we would get for him. So I'd say, yeah, move on Costas, keep Robertson as a backup, and then sign a Kirkes or somebody like that to come in as a first choice. That's probably the good kind of middle ground. It's probably the sensible approach here. In terms of what we'd get for Costas, probably like 25 million, 25 odd, I would say. Who's that? Probably about 25 million. So if we tally up the money kind of raised so far, we said Nunes about 60-ish, Diaz about 60-ish, which is 120. Add to that, who else are we selling? Add to that Kelleher, which is 30. So 60 plus 60 plus 30, that's 150. Add to that Costas, which we're saying is about 25. So 175. So we're already kind of getting close to already getting close to that 200 million mark. Going through the team, I wouldn't sell Endo. Like I don't I don't understand this fascination that people kind of have with kind of selling Endo, because, and the reason why I wouldn't sell him is, number one, he's on very low wages. Number two, we'd get like a very low transfer fee for him. So kind of what's the point, if you know what I mean? Because I think we'd only get like probably only get about 10 million, right? And what's 10 million gonna do? Like Endo, I think is worth more, that is worth more to the team than what 10 million pounds would do, if you know what I mean. So that's another reason why I probably kind of keep Endo around. Thirdly, I think he fulfills a different role in the team, and we don't really have anybody else within that profile. So as an example, Gravenberch, he's not really a ball winner. Who else? Sabazlai, he's okay at it, but he's traditionally not a ball winner. McAllister, also not really a ball winner. So I think it kind of makes sense having Endo there, because he's something a bit different. And sometimes you need to kind of change things up in a game and bring on something different to what's already there. So I think that's another area where Endo can add a lot of value. So I've given 3 reasons already. Fourth reason, he doesn't seem to have an ego. Like, he seems to be kind of quite a humble person, quite a good character to have around the dressing room. Doesn't think he's kind of better than everyone. So I'd say that's a fourth reason. Just generally the way he is and the impact that has on the team. Because I think these are the intangibles, and I think these things are important, especially when you're building a team. And I'd say a fifth reason, he's a Japanese captain. So from like a commercial aspect in terms of selling shirts and that sort of thing, why lose him? I mean, I don't know if he brings in 10 million himself, but he must be pretty close. So yeah, for all those reasons, I would kind of keep Endo. Obviously, wouldn't sell any of the other midfielders. Wouldn't sell Jones. We've kind of covered the forward line. There's probably 2 players left with respect to sales. So one of those would be Jota. I'm kind of umming and ahhing on Jota because, firstly, we've said that we're going to sell Nunez, and we've also said that we're going to sell Diaz. And I think if you sell a third one, are we perhaps kind of making too many changes to the attack, if you know what I mean? So I think I might kind of keep Jota around just for that reason, unless we get some sort of crazy offer. Like if we get 50 million or above, then it might be kind of worth considering. But I'd keep Jota around. But the one I want to talk about, and this one is perhaps a bit controversial, I would perhaps consider selling Konate. and the reason for that is he hasn't signed a new contract. And you know how we were saying that Diaz has got 2 years left, so we need to kind of action that. Well, with Konate's got 1 year left. And then when the season starts, he'll have like 11 months left. So, like, I don't want us to be in the same situation next year where we're like, oh my God, is Konate going to sign? Is he going to sign? Is he not going to sign? And then we can make him an offer and he says, hey, it's an offer, but it's not quite what I was expecting. Like, do we really want to go through all that again? You know what I mean? So I like Konate as a player. I like Konate as a person. I like him as a personality. I like his ability. But like, if he doesn't want to sign a contract, and from the club's perspective, if it looks like if they have doubts as to whether they will make a breakthrough, then yeah, might need to sell him. But I think generally there, I think I've gone into perhaps more detail. I've perhaps gone into more detail than I kind of meant to. But yeah, that should kind of raise at least somewhere around the 200 million mark. Oh, another one would be perhaps somebody like Tyler Morton. He's been in and around the first team squad a lot this year. He's been on the bench a lot this year, but he never seems to come on. Like, he never seems to come on. So that to me says kind of the manager doesn't really favor him. And so if the manager doesn't really favor him, just sell him, let him go play somewhere else, let him develop somewhere else, get a fee for him and kind of move on. And we've done this with youth team players in the past. So we did it with Nico Williams, who's now going to get into the Champions League with Nottingham Forest. We've done it with Ryan Brewster. It's a common thing. It's a common thing that we do. Where we kind of buy these players young, and if they do make the grade, great, and if they don't make the grade, then we kind of move them on, and that's good for the club because the club gets money, and it's also good for the youngster themselves because now they have some playing opportunity. So Tyler Morton will be another one I'll be looking to move on, and part of the reason for that as well is what's his name? Stefan Bajcetic is also going to be coming back. I know he's currently playing as a kind of centre-back for Las Palmas, but if Stefan Bajcetic comes back, then you kind of need Tyler Morton even less because Bajcetic can play that bench role. Bajcetic can play that kind of cup match role. So yeah, I'd say kind of given that Bajcetic is coming back as well, that's another reason why we can perhaps look to move on Tyler Morton. So kind of based on everyone I've covered there, I've kind of forgotten half of them now, but Kelleher, Diaz, Nunes, Tyler Morton, Tsimikas, we should be looking at least kind of 200 million there that we can reinvest into the squad. Kat Smith says, do you think Van Dijk, Trent and Salah sign? In terms of signing new contracts, two of them, yes. One of them, no. And I think you know which way that goes. I think Van Dijk will sign, and I think Salah probably will sign. I don't think Trent's gonna sign. Van Dijk seems to kind of love the club a lot, and I think the reception to Van Dijk in England and especially within Liverpool, it's really different to how it is in Netherlands. So in England and in Liverpool, he's kind of treated like a god. He's treated as this elite player that he is, but he's kind of disrespected in kind of Netherlands. So naturally, you'd want to stay in the environment that kind of appreciates you more, right? So I think I definitely think kind of Van Dijk will stay. I definitely think Salah will stay. He seems like he's at home in Liverpool. He kind of likes the city. He likes the surroundings. So that's. I think they'll work a deal out, and I think the club would be foolish to kind of let him go. He's probably their biggest asset from an on the pitch perspective, and also like an off the pitch perspective. You know what I mean? So yeah, I think Van Dijk and Salah will sign. Trent probably not. I'm not convinced. I'm not convinced this injury thing is real. Like, sorry. Like, you're saying, oh, he's so injured he can't play, but he seemed to be delighted when we beat Everton the other day, and he's there like high-fiving all the players. Like, I'm not convinced he's actually injured. I think he's made up his mind that he wants to go, and now he's on quote-unquote gardening leave, if you know what I mean. So yeah, I think Van Dijk will sign. I think Van Dijk will be the first one to sign. And I think Salah will also sign, but I think Trent will probably go. And I think added to that, I think he's going to do a Coutinho and say that he's injured the entire season. And then, you know, move on to Madrid, and then we can perhaps move on as well. Kat Smith says, will Konate sign next year? Well, I hope he signs this year because he's only got 12 months left. So I hope he signs this year because next year will be too late. And unless you mean like around Christmas time, around January, February time kind of thing. The thing is with Konate, and I think we were kind of talking about it a bit before, he's only got 1 year left on his contract. So kind of 12 months. So we really need him to make up his mind. And we really need the club to get a bit more organized. I appreciate there's been like a managerial change. I appreciate there's been like an organizational change as well with respect to how the club hierarchy works. But I'm hoping these kind of things will soon be a thing of the past. And by these kind of things, I mean players coming up to the last 12 months, players coming up to the last 2 years. I hope this is something that gets sorted soon. And isn't a thing going forward with, I don't know, with Allison soon, or with whoever, if you know what I mean. So yeah, I hope he signs this year. I hope he signs soon. If it doesn't look like he's gonna sign, then the club might need to kind of seriously consider just kind of cashing in, because we can't be losing any more kind of expensive players on a free. Yeah. You don't progress by kind of repeatedly losing your best players is bad enough, but losing them for free is just downright negligent. So I think they need to really do something about that. Barry Allen says favorite Liverpool player of all time. I'm gonna try not to pick something stereotypical like Steven Gerrard, because that's what everyone says, even though it probably is him. But it feels a bit too kind of stereotypical. But at the same time, I don't want to be kind of too edgy. I don't want to be too edgy and say like Steve Finnan. It's Steve Finnan, or it's Mark Wright, or it's Dan Collymore, or something. Favorite Liverpool player. Growing up, it was Patrick Berger. I don't know if people kind of remember him, but he was like a Czech kind of number 10 type of player. I think he ended up going to West Ham after Liverpool, but Patrick Berger was my favorite player growing up. He was number 15. And there was a game, I think it was Liverpool versus Chelsea, and it was 5-1, and I think he scored 2 goals there. So I'd probably say kind of Patrick Berger growing up. In more recent times, I don't know if I've necessarily had a specific favorite, if you know what I mean. So yeah, I'd probably go for Patrick Berger. Kelly D says, what are your thoughts on the season overall, success or failure? Wow, I mean, definitely a success. If you said to me we're going to win the league at the start of the season, I'd be like, I don't care what else happens. If we're going to win the league, then that's a success. Even if it was a case of, okay, you'll win the league, but you'll go out the Champions League at the first step, you go out the Carabao Cup at the first step, you'll go out what's the other one? You go out the FA Cup at the first step, which we did. I'd still say it's a success, purely based on kind of winning the Premier League. So yeah, definite success. And I think we also have to kind of remember the context, in the sense that this is a new manager coming to a brand new country, to a brand new team, where he hasn't really bought anyone. And I'm not going to count Chiesa as one of his players, because we all know it's not. Brand new manager coming to a brand new team, coming to a brand new country, and he wins the league. And it's not like a random country either. It's not like, I don't know, the French league or the Saudi league. He's literally winning the Premier League. So I don't see how that can be kind of anything but a success. And I have seen a bit of the narrative saying, oh, we could have won more, or it's only the Premier League, that sort of thing. But that just seems like nonsense to me. You'd take only the Premier League 10 times in a row. So yeah, it's a definite success to me. Would you take Klopp back? No, not really. I mean, he had a good time. At the club. but I don't see. I mean, I don't see kind of any reason to kind of bring him back. Things are going really well at Liverpool. I'm sure he's enjoying his job at Leipzig, kind of thing. If we were doing terribly this season, and by terribly I mean Man United level, or even better than that, if we were like mid-table, then I'd be like, okay, yeah, I'd consider it. But no, considering it looks like we're going to win the league, I see no reason to kind of bring him back and implement a change. What are your thoughts about? So Simon says, "What are your thoughts about Trent leaving?" I was really annoyed about it. I thought it was really dirty behavior. I thought it was very scummy behavior. But now I don't really care, to be honest. Now I don't really care. You know, when you go through the kind of stages of grief and you're in denial and then you're angry and then eventually you reach the kind of stage of acceptance, like now I'm like, whatever, you can go. You can go. Because to be honest, he's barely played this year anyway, and we've barely really needed him. And yeah, whatever. Like I don't think he's particularly important to this team. I do think in the previous system, so in Klopp's system, he was a lot more important and he was a lot more integral to how that worked. But with respect to kind of Slot's system, he doesn't seem to be the main piece of that, and maybe that bothers him. Maybe that bothers him to a certain degree. But yeah, I am still a bit miffed. I am still a bit annoyed that he's kind of going for free. But like I'd like to get some sort of fee for him, even if it was like 50 million quid, 40 million quid, whatever. So the fact that he's going for free still does annoy me a little bit. But as I was saying earlier, I've kind of made my peace with it now. Kind of over it now. Like he wants to go, let him go. I'm not kind of convinced he'll be a success at Madrid. I don't know if that kind of comes across as sour grapes or kind of bitterness or butthurtness in any way. But I'm not convinced he's going to be a success. And I'm not convinced he has the mentality to deal with the level of scrutiny that he's going to be under over there. Because at Liverpool, you make a mistake, we'll still support you. You make a fifth mistake, we'll still support you. You let the guy in at the back post, we'll still support you. You don't track back, we'll still support you. But I think the difference is at Madrid, after your second mistake, perhaps your third mistake, then they start turning on you. And I'm not convinced he's got the mental strength to kind of handle that and kind of deal with that. Like, I know he's kind of best mates with Jude, but they seem like very different people. And I appreciate opposites can attract from a friend perspective as well, but they seem like very different people. Like Jude is more kind of extroverted, more kind of what you see is what you get. But Trent seems a lot more introverted and kind of a lot more reserved. So I think kind of given his character and given his demeanor, I don't know how he will kind of handle that situation. But I'm intrigued to see it. Like if he does well, great. But I don't see that happening. And to be honest, I more likely kind of see him ending up at like a Newcastle in 2 years or like a Villa or something. I don't think it's going to work out. But as I said, I'm kind of over it now. Simon says, which right back would you get to replace Alexander Arnold? Good question. I don't think the right back market is quite as profound and is quite as interesting as the left back market or the centre back market. I think we're a lot more kind of limited in choice with respect to right backs. One of the kind of obvious choices is Jerome Frimpong. Obviously kind of came through at Man City and now plays in Germany. Advantages to Frimpong is his Dutch, so he'd integrate well with the Dutch management team that we have and the Dutch contingent that we already have within the squad. So you've got Van Dijk, you've got Gravenberch, you've got Gakpo. All three are Dutch kind of nationals, so having a fourth one you think would kind of settle in well. He's very good going forward. He's very good from an attacking perspective. to the point where for Netherlands in the recent two Nation League games versus Spain, he was actually playing on the right wing as a front three. Now, people's concerns might be, oh, hold on, does that make him like a bit too attacking? And maybe, maybe it does. But I think the thing is with these kind of things, I think it's easier to teach defending to an attacking player than it is to teach attacking to a defensive player. So I think if we were it's unlikely the player we get is going to be perfect in every attribute. It's unlikely that they are going to be perfect in every metric, especially the market that we shop in, which is the kind of, you're not yet world class, but you might become world class if we train you and we invest in you from a team and a development perspective. So basically what I'm saying is the player we get, they're gonna have downside somewhere. Like, we're not in the market for like an Hakimi or that sort of thing. So I think Frimpong is probably a good option. I don't really know who else there is. Like, people are saying like Hakimi, like we ain't getting Hakimi. Hakimi is going to be ridiculously expensive, and also is going to have ridiculously expensive wages. That's another benefit to Frimpong, is that his wages are not ridiculous. So probably Frimpong, but I quite like it when the club kind of delivers a player that nobody knew about. So like a completely unknown player, kind of similar to what happened with Robertson on the left-hand side back in the day, where everyone kind of wanted a Jonas Hector, everyone wanted kind of other left backs, and then Liverpool turned up and said, "Hey, we're giving you this Scottish guy from Hull." And everyone was like, "What? Him? Okay." So I'd like it if they did kind of something similar on the right-hand side, because I would like to think they saw this coming. I would like to think they would have known. I'd like to think they would have known a year ago that, look, it looks very unlikely that Trent is going to sign a new contract. Therefore, let's invest some time researching other right backs that we can get if he leaves. So I would hope they already have like a list of kind of candidates. And I would hope it's not just a list. I'd hope some of those are kind of further along at this point. So yeah, I'd hope kind of someone off that list, because we know that traditionally we did do things based on data, and then when that data team left, all of that kind of went up in flames, which is another story altogether. But I'm hoping now that Michael Edwards is back, I'm hoping now that Julian Ward is back, and I'm hoping now that since Slot as the manager is multiple levels below in the hierarchy, is below the technical director, he's below the CEO of football, he's below the sporting director. Since Slot is kind of at the bottom of that chain to a certain degree, I'm hoping the guys above the chain, who are your Michael Edwards, your Julian Wards, your Richard Hugheses, I hope they will now kind of leverage more data. Not hope, like I know they will, that's the whole thing, right? But I hope now they'll start to kind of leverage more data and get more data-based signings, and I hope their right back is one of those. Kim says, "Hey, would you give Salah the Ballon d'Or? I think he's the best option." I would. Even though kind of things haven't been amazing the past kind of few weeks, I don't think that 100% detracts from what he has done so far, if you know what I mean. His goal tally this year has been amazing. His assist tally this year has also been amazing. So yeah, well, what more do you want, right? And like he's gonna win the Premier League as well. So I think that's another thing to kind of add on. I would also take his age into account as well, in a positive way, to say that, look, this guy is over 30 and he's still delivering like this. in one of, if not the kind of hardest leagues in the year. So yeah, I'd 100% give it to Salah. The only thing is the kind of Champions League exit might kind of count against him a little bit, which is unfortunate. And the Ballon d'Or as well, it also seems to be like a bit of a kind of popularity contest, a bit of like a popularity contest with the Spanish teams. I almost feel like you have to play for Barcelona or you have to play for Real Madrid, and that will give you at least a 90% chance of winning it. I appreciate Rodri won it last time round, but it still doesn't take away from the point. So yeah, I would give it to Salah, but I got a bad feeling that this kind of school popularity contest, because that's what it is, they're going to give it to Vinicius or Rafinha or I don't know, one of those guys. Jimmy Diaz says, "Yo, what do you think? What do you think about Kwanzaa to Newcastle?" Yeah, this was an interesting thing. This broke from a news perspective a few days ago. They seem to be really interested in Kwanzaa. I know it kind of sounds harsh, but like I don't know why. Like, because like they've got Botman who's really good. They've got Fabian Shaw who's really good. Like, what is the obsession with Kwanzaa? I mean, Kwanzaa's fine. He's good. But like, what is their obsession with him? Like, it's just a bit it's just a bit peculiar. With respect to him going, it would depend on the fee. It would depend on the fee that we could kind of get. I'd say if we could get like 40 million or above, then it might be worth moving him on. Part of the reason for that is that 40 million pound price range is where lots of defenders are available. So Huijsen is kind of roughly around that price. Schlotterbeck is kind of roughly around that price. Ignacio is kind of roughly around that price. So yeah, I'd say if you can get at least 40, but maybe even more than that, then yeah, I'd say yeah, let's kind of look to kind of move him on and get someone else in. I do think Kwanzaa technically is a very good defender, and he's still very, very young. And he is still kind of quite raw to a certain degree. But I think what perhaps kind of holds him back a little bit is he doesn't seem to be the quickest. And something I've noticed, especially from a Liverpool perspective, is Liverpool seems to thrive when they have really fast, really kind of speedy centre-backs. And that's just not kind of who Kwanzaa is. If you look at Van Dijk, he's rapid. If you look at Kanate, he's rapid. And another kind of weird thing I've noticed is when they do these kind of social media videos on YouTube and so forth, they often have these discussions like who's the fastest person in the team, and it's always one of the defenders, pretty much. Which wasn't the case. Which wasn't the case which wasn't the case even 5 years ago. Even 5 years ago, defenders were known for being kind of slow and plodding along. So yeah, as I was saying, I don't think Kwanzaa fits the kind of mold of a Liverpool centre back. As harsh as that is, it's not a very nice thing to say. So yeah, I'd say if Newcastle want to spend like 45, 50 million, then yeah, let's take advantage of that. Heck, if they want to do like a swap deal for Isaac or Gordon or something, let's I wouldn't mind that, but yeah, there seems to be a lot of smoke there with respect to Kwanzaa and Newcastle, so it's something worth keeping an eye on. I don't know if this keeps coming up because he's given them some sort of indication that he'd be willing to join, but this story does kind of repeatedly crop up like every month or so. Yeah, apparently the Salah deal is almost sorted. Maybe we can partner him with Gordon. Yeah, so in terms of Anthony Gordon, I presume. Yeah, it does seem like the Salah deals and the Van Dijk deals are pretty much done now. I don't know if the sticking point was wages, but it's starting to kind of feel like that, because as soon as it was announced pretty much that Trent was leaving, then they said, yeah, but now the Van Dijk deal's done and now the Salah deal's done. So I don't know if they just took Trent's wages and then gave half of them to Van Dijk and half of them to Salah, so that the overall kind of wage package is still the same. That's kind of what it feels like they've done. And Liverpool did something kind of quite similar last year. Not last year. Liverpool did something quite similar a few years ago with Salah and Mane. So when Mane left, Liverpool just gave Salah all of Mane's wages. So Liverpool seemed quite, not obsessed, but quite what's the word? Quite strict on ensuring the overall wage budget doesn't go up. So what it looks like is happening is Trent's going to go. They're going to give a portion of those wages to Salah. They're going to give another portion of those wages to Van Dijk, because I think Trent's on 180. So I don't know if they're going to give 90 to each or 50 to each and then save a bit. But yeah, it looks like that is what's going to happen. Even when that happens, I still expect to read some nonsense next year to say the overall wage budget's gone up. I'm like, has it? I don't believe any of that. Players leave, manager leaves. Klopp was on like 350 grand a week, and you're telling me he leaves and the wage budget and the wages have gone up? Nonsense. But yeah, we'll see what happens. Jimmy Diaz also says, do you think it will be a busy summer for transfers? I do. I think this will be one of the busiest summers in a while, for multiple reasons. Number one, we haven't really bought anyone in the past 3 windows. So we did not buy anyone this January. We bought Chiesa last summer, but I'm not really counting him. Basically, we bought nobody in the summer, and we bought nobody the previous January as well. So I think there will be significant change this summer, and I do think it will be a busy window. And I think part of that is the new leadership structure that we have in place. Their reasoning was that they wanted time to assess the squad, and now they've had a year to assess the squad. So I think now they should know who they want to move on, and who they want to bring in. I think you can see that in the match day squads as well, if you know what I mean. Like Elliott is always on the bench, but he never seems to get any minutes. Chiesa is always on the bench, but he never seems to get any minutes. So I think it will be a busy summer in terms of kind of outgoings and also incomings. And I think also the new kind of leadership structure, they do seem a bit egotistical, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that actually in a good way. Because I think pretty much everyone who's good at their jobs has a level of ego to a certain degree, and I think the new ownership group, they do seem a bit egotistical to the point where I think they're going to want to put their own stamp on this team, because they will perhaps still feel like this is still Klopp's team, because it is, right? It is literally still Klopp's team. So I think they'll want to kind of move players out that they don't necessarily approve of. And I think they're going to want to bring in their own players to kind of start off their own little project. So yeah, it will be busy. It will be busy. This one will be busy. January, maybe not. Next year, maybe less so. But I think this one will be one of the busiest we've seen in a while. Neymar Jr. says, what do you think the Liverpool transfer budget will be in the summer? Ooh, okay. Pretty much zero. Pretty much like 50 million. That seems to be the norm, right? A lot of transfers are raised by virtue of sales. So typically we sell a lot of players and then we use that money to fund new transfers. Sometimes a bit extra is put on top, like an extra kind of 50 million on top. But yeah, I think it will basically be whatever is raised from sales plus about kind of 50 million. And I think there will be opportunities to go beyond that if there is real value to be had. But I think that will be done on a kind of case-by-case basis. Internally within the clubs, Richard Hughes and so forth probably have to raise business cases to Michael Edwards and the ownership to say, okay, look, we want to spend an extra amount on this player that we haven't necessarily budgeted for. So I don't think there's necessarily going to be like a huge budget. I think a lot of it is going to come from sales, and then the ownership might put a little bit on top, like somewhere in the 50 million mark. But they'll only do that if it's a player, and rightfully so. They'll only do that if they'll think it's a player who's perhaps undervalued and who can bring them a lot of value for multiple years, which makes sense. You don't want to spend 70 million on Casemiro or whoever. So yeah, I'd say around 50. Neymar is also saying you should definitely go for Frimpong. Yeah, we were talking about Frimpong a bit earlier, saying he's a really good option on the right hand side, very attacking, perhaps too attacking, perhaps too attacking, and that might be a concern to some people. But as we were kind of saying earlier, it's easier to teach defending to a player who's attacking rather than teaching attacking to a player who's defensive. So Frimpong's an option, but as I was saying, I would like it to be like some random guy that no one's ever heard of, but that the data team have scouted and the data team have said, look, this guy is your guy. He costs 10 million now, but in a few years he'll be worth 60, 70. Those are the really impressive signings. Frimpong's the obvious choice, and I'm not convinced the kind of structure we have in place now goes for the obvious choices. Fabinho wasn't an obvious choice. Robertson wasn't an obvious choice. Tsimikas wasn't an obvious choice. So yeah. Dale Peterson, aka Goku, says, what positions would you strengthen for Liverpool? I would definitely buy a central striker, a left back, and a midfielder. Yeah, all of those. Central striker to replace Nunez, a left back to replace whoever leaves out of Tsimikas and Robertson, which I presume is going to be Tsimikas because of what we were talking about earlier. But yeah, left back to replace Tsimikas, a midfielder to accompany Gravenberch. And I hope this midfielder is more of a kind of defensive midfielder, because I think Gravenberch needs a rest occasionally. This year, he's arguably been overplayed. And you can do that, but then 5-6 years later, we say, oh my God, we ran him into the ground. Oh my God, we ran Fabinho into the ground. Oh my God, we ran Robertson into the ground, and now he's 30 and he can barely walk. So again, we need to be kind of proactive and say, like, look, Gravenberch is still a young player, has played a significant amount of games this year, so let's get him some sort of competition to the point where he doesn't have to play every single game next year. What I'd perhaps add to that is a centre-back as well, because if you think about it, there's only really 3 centre-backs at the back. You got Van Dijk, you got Konate, you've got Kwanzaa, and all 3 of those have questions about their future. So there's questions as to whether Van Dijk will sign. There's questions as to whether Konate will sign next year, because he's only got 12 months left. So we're going to have to do this all again next year. And there's questions as to whether Kwanzaa will leave for Newcastle. So at least one centre-back we need to bring in. I know we have Gomez, but Gomez seems to be kind of playing the role of a utility man, which is kind of amazing, because I think he is a good centre-back, and I think he is a good right-back, and I think he is a good left-back. But I think we just need one more defender in there at the very least. Jenny says, thoughts on Mamadashvili? Cautiously excited is what I'd say. It looks like a kind of very good shot stopper. He seems to be kind of the first data signing of the new regime. So it'll be interesting to see how that works out. It will be interesting to see if and when he kind of usurps Alisson, and if and when that happens, what then happens to Alisson. So it'll be interesting to see. I do have some concerns about his distribution. I don't think he's as good with the ball at his feet and kind of that kind of thing. But I'm excited to see him. But I think your next comment is kind of what I was going to get onto more, to say I would rather keep Kelleher. Yeah, kind of again, like I was kind of talking about before. I really like Kelleher. He's come through the ranks. Low wages, doesn't really have an ego. Cantor's homegrown. So yeah, in an ideal world, I'd rather kind of keep Kelleher, but it looks like he kind of wants to move on to play first team football, and have that opportunity to develop himself. And I don't think we can kind of keep him here on the bench forever. It's not fair on him, kind of thing. And I think it would also set a bad example to any kind of up and comers in the future to say, yeah, you can come to Liverpool, and even if you're really good, we will have an expensive signing in front of you, so your career will stagnate on the bench. So I think if we were to kind of keep Kelleher here, it would send a bad message to the next kind of crop of youngsters to say this isn't the place for you. So yeah, I think unfortunately we kind of need to move Kelleher on, even though if I had my way, I'd keep him here. And yeah, we'll see what happens next year. I presume Alisson's still going to be the first choice, and Mamadashvili is going to come in as a backup. Could that flip? Could that flip during the season? I think that's the interesting part that we'll all kind of keep our eyes on. And I think especially with Alisson's injury concerns, for a goalkeeper, he has missed quite a lot of football. And the older you get, the more frequent the injuries get. So next year, is he going to have even more injuries? So is Mamadashvili going to be playing a lot more league games and a lot more Champions League games than we would have envisioned? Sorry. So yeah, let's see what happens there. How much would you take for Nunes? I think we were talking about this earlier as well. Anything 50 and above is quite good. Bare minimum, like bare minimum, 45 and above. But in an ideal, not in an ideal world, in a expectable world, is that the phrase? In an expected world, 50 and above, but in an ideal world, like 60 and above. So yeah, around the 50-60 mark, let's take it and kind of reinvest it. Sierra Camera says, would you keep Gakpo? Yeah, 100%. 100%. I think Gakpo's best option on the left wing. This is the first season as well where he's really had that opportunity to play in his favored position. Because when he first arrived, he was kind of stuck in that number 9 position, where he did okay, but it wasn't really his natural position. And then I swear he was playing in midfield for a bit as well, which was a bit peculiar. But now he's playing in his favored position, and it's really good to see. So yeah, I definitely keep him on the left. I definitely keep him number 1, and number 2, I definitely keep him on the left. I think he's our best option on the left, and hopefully that now he's had a season of playing on the left, you'd hope that would improve his confidence, and hopefully next year he'll be even better. But yeah, I'd keep him and I'd start him. And then the follow-on question to that is Diaz or Gakpo. I like them both. They both have skills. They both have value. They both offer different things. But ultimately, if I was starting a Champions League final tomorrow, I'd probably go with Gakpo. Dale Peterson says Kwanzaa or Konate. Konate for me, 100%. I think he's a lot stronger, a lot faster, better in the tackle, better with respect to aerial duels, better haircut, better pretty much everything. I'd say traditionally where Kwanzaa was a lot better was on the ball. So he did look a lot more assured on the ball. He was better with the ball at his feet. He was better kind of passing it long, that sort of thing. But I think this year, he's made progress with respect to the ball at his feet. And he's doing quite a few nice passes as well, and that sort of thing. So Konate is making really big strides with respect to his ball playing ability. So he's closing that gap. He's essentially kind of closing that gap a bit on Kwanzaa. But yeah, Kanate for me, pretty much every day of the week. Dale also says Robertson or Simicast. It changes every week. They both have like crazy bozo moments like every week, and then Robertson will do something silly, and then I'm like, yeah, Simicast. And then you give Simicast a chance, and then Simicast will do something silly, and you're like, no, why did I ever think Simicast? Obviously, the answer is Robertson. I'd say Robertson. Robertson is more defensively sound, but Simicast is better going forward and is better from dead ball situations, better from crosses and that sort of thing. So I'd say it depends on your opposition. If you're playing against a tougher team, probably Robertson. If you're playing against kind of a low block type of side, then probably Simicast, I'd say. Uriah Mandelson says we need to buy DM cover for Gravenberch. It's clear Slot doesn't trust Endo, and we need someone in a similar mold to Gravenberch. Yeah, I do think we need DM cover for Gravenberch, partly because what we were saying earlier, in the sense that Gravenberch has played a lot of games this year, and then I think he reached a stage of burnout maybe a few games ago, like around that Newcastle PSG game, where he didn't quite look himself. Because if you think about it, he's starting pretty much every game, and the guy's only human. And on top of that, now the Netherlands team have also recognized his talent, so now he's got kind of international games to consider as well. So yeah, I do think we need cover. I probably wouldn't even say cover. I'd say ideally kind of competition. So if you can get competition from Gravenberch, that would be. I think that would be perfect. So that Gravenberch could rest a few games, and the other person, whether it's Zubimendi or somebody else, can come in for other games. With respect to Endo, I do think it was clear that he wasn't trusted earlier in the season, but I think he's kind of one slot over. He seems to be coming on a lot now in games, especially to kind of close games off and that sort of thing. So I think Slot didn't used to trust Endo, but now I think he might have won him over. Now I think he might have won him over. C. Smith says. C. Smith says, I'm worried we'll lose the Premier League. Well, I'm hoping that's sarcasm. I think we'll be okay. So there's 24 points left to get. So there's 8 games left. Yep, so there's 8 games left, 24 points left to win, and we're 12 points ahead. So we're halfway there. And we're not even living on a prayer. Like, we're just living on facts. That I don't see us capitulating and losing the league from this position. I think we're too far ahead. If it was like 6 points, then yeah, that's a bit nervy. But yeah, we've lost like 1 game all season, so I'm not worried. I'm not worried now. If we do lose the league, it will be a capitulation, the likes of which nobody's ever seen. But I don't see that happening. I think we'll be okay. Robin Smith says, would you keep Ben Doak? I would keep Ben Doak. I quite like Ben Doak. He's got like a very low center of gravity, and I like the way he dribbles, and I like the way the ball kind of sticks to his feet. And I like, because he's got such a low center of gravity, I like how it's hard for opposition players to kind of get the ball off him. So I think he offers something that a lot of other wingers don't have. So I would keep him, and I do want him to develop further because I think there's a lot of potential there. Unfortunately, I got a bad feeling they might sell him. They might sell him to fund another transfer. But me personally, I'd keep Ben Doak around. Not ready to kind of give up on Ben Doak yet. I think his dribbling is some of the best I've seen, especially from a young player. His shooting needs to be worked on, obviously. link-up play needs to be worked on. But I really hope we kind of keep Ben Doak. Like, I'm convinced this guy's going to be a top player. Kat Smith says predictions for the Fulham game. Predictions for the Fulham game. That's on Sunday. Fulham at home. It's going to be nervy. I think we'll only win it by 1 goal, to be honest. We're not playing amazing at the moment. Yeah, we're not playing too great at the moment. Defensively, we look okay. Going forward, we look okay. I think it will be enough to beat Fulham. The question is, will Fulham score? I'm gonna go with no. I think we'll beat them 1-0. 1-0. Yeah. Probably a 1-0 win. Jimmy Diaz says, do you think we'll win the UCL next season? Do I think we'll win the UCL next season? Probably not. No. I do think we'll get closer, if that counts for something. I don't think we'll top the group again, but I think we'll get closer in the group stages. In terms of winning the Champions League, maybe we need to look at the year after next. I think next year might come a bit too soon, but you never know. Learning piano says, I would sell Konate. I would sell Konate in the summer. I presume you're referring to like his entire kind of contract situation with him kind of not signing and that sort of thing. I'd keep him around. If he wants to sign. Give me 1 second. Yeah, I'd keep him around if he wants to stay. But yeah, you're right. If he doesn't want to stay, and if he's insistent on requesting like a really, really high wage, then yeah, I'd probably look at kind of moving him on. I still think we can get a decent fee for him, even if he's only got 12 months left. So yeah, dependent on if he wants to sign a new deal, and dependent on what we can kind of get to him. But yeah, I'd be open to it. Get Huijsen. Yeah, Huijsen looks amazing. Huijsen looks like the next big thing. Saw him for Spain, seen him for Bournemouth. Very good player. Very assured on the ball, and he looks like he can develop physically as well. Only concern is I think a lot of teams will be in for him. I think a lot of teams will be in for him, which would limit our ability to kind of get him. But yeah, if he's available, I mean, he is available because he's got a release clause, and I think kind of reading murmurings and that sort of thing, he does. He is open to a move. He is open to kind of moving on, kind of thing. So yeah, I'd be in for him, but I think it just depends on who else is in for him. Because it seems like Real Madrid are in for him as well, and if Real Madrid are in for him as well, it might be a bit tough for us unless we can kind of guarantee him first team football. But if you think about a quote unquote ideal situation, in an ideal situation, Van Dijk stays and Konate extends. So if Van Dijk stays and Konate extends, the best we can offer Huijsen is like a third place spot. So basically a bench spot. And he can go get a bench spot at Real Madrid. And I think he's Spanish as well, so that kind of strengthens that argument. So Yeah, I mean, if he wants to come, let's be all over that. But always get concerned whenever you hear Real Madrid. Dale is back, and Dale says Huijsen is overrated. I'd rather have Schlotterbeck. Oh, okay. Schlotterbeck, also good defender, plays for Dortmund. What I like about Schlotterbeck is he's naturally kind of left-footed. Well, I like that about him, and I also don't like that about him, because if Schlotterbeck is naturally left-footed, then you'd imagine he'd play more on the left side of a two. But the thing is, that's Van Dijk's favored position, because that's where Van Dijk does that long crossfield ball over the top to Salah. So if we were to get Schlotterbeck, does that then mean we then have to move Van Dijk over to the right? That'll look weird. That'll look strange. But Schlotterbeck, I'd say another advantage he has kind of going for him is he is kind of coming into his prime now. I think he's about 26 kind of thing, whereas Huijsen is a lot younger. So that's another thing we have to consider. I'd be happy with either. I'd probably be leaning more towards kind of Huijsen, but yeah, both good. Dale says that Huijsen is also too young. He is very young. He's very young. I'm not convinced that he's kind of too young yet. I'd say he's kind of Premier League proven to a certain degree. I know that term gets thrown around a lot, but he's playing well in the Premier League, and it looks like he can keep up to speed with the physicality. He can keep up to speed with the speed of the league. So whilst he is very young, I don't know if he's necessarily too young. Let me check it actually. How old is he? I'm just gonna Google it. Oh, I'm 19. Maybe you're right. Well, he's 19, but it's his birthday next week. So it's his birthday not on this Monday coming, but the Monday after that. Okay, he's 19, 20. I thought it was a bit older than that. Oh God. But it is what it is. It is what it is. Yeah. If we can get Huijsen, let's kind of be in for him. But I got a bad feeling that Madrid will probably come in for him and take him from under our nose. So yeah, that's about it. I think we've been here. Been here for about an hour. I'll try doing one of these again sometime soon, and then we'll see how this goes. Yeah, we'll try. Just let me know when you want to do one of these again, and we'll do this again. In terms of what I'm going to do next, there's going to be the watch along on Sunday for the Fulham game, so that should be interesting. And then yeah, whatever kind of crops up after that. If there's any interesting transfer news, if there's any interesting contract news, we'll go from there. But cool. I'm going to go now, and we'll pick this up another time. All right. Take care, guys. Cheers.